For you, this presentation may be a little bit elementary. It discusses a lot of basic concepts that when used together can be pretty powerful, but this is something that hopefully anyone who uses Confluence will at least get something out of it. So who am I? My name is Anthony Pelosi, and to the best of my knowledge, I'm not related to Nancy, so that way I'll answer that right away rather than answering it individually afterwards. I am a technical product manager at Magellan GPS in the fitness division. I've been a Giro and a Confluence user now for about 6 years at 3 different companies, so I guess I consider myself kind of a power user. I have actually presented previously at some of the San Francisco AUG meetings as well as at Summit. So if I do a poor job, I have no excuse. All right, a few things. This presentation is not about best practices. It is not introducing the latest and greatest features. To be honest, it's not extremely well polished either. And it is not an attempt to promote any product or service. So although in this presentation I do show screenshots and use some plugins, some free, some paid, the goal of this is not to promote any one plugin. It's just to show pretty much a case study in how I've used Confluence recently to get my work done. All right, this presentation is an actual case study, and as in reality, things in reality may not always be as pretty as you would theoretically hope it would be, so it may be a little ugly at times. It's an example of showing a number of simple techniques that can be used in powerful ways when used together. This presentation is a work in progress. I created it last night. And other than teaching you hopefully something that you can learn and walk away with, one of the goals of this presentation is to let everyone know that don't feel scared or apprehensive to come up and present yourself. At a lot of these user group meetings over the past year, we've had a lot of really well-polished presenters. We've had a number of partners come up and do presentations. But it is okay to come up, do a presentation, show a few things, and just show other users how you've used the product, because that really is the essence of the user group. So hopefully this presentation will inspire you, and you'll say, oh, I can do a better job than him. So that's a good thing. All right. So we're going to start with dream, and the dream in this case is starting with a product, an actual consumer electronics device. So a lot of examples that you'll find in how to use Confluence is how to use it in terms of workflow, especially for web development, mobile development, and documentation, that sort of thing. And so we're going to go through today as an actual physical hardware device that contains device software on it. So after you wake up to the dream, you start with a landing page. So that's kind of a little snapshot of a landing page. So the first tip is if you're gonna go through and create a product and you're gonna document it, you want one place, one URL that you can point people to, and when they say, I want to find everything I need to know about this product from a marketing perspective, from a software development perspective, from a testing perspective, you should be able to give them a single URL to go to, and they should be able to find everything from there. And if you can't give them a single URL, you did something wrong. So find a way to construct everything and have one single point of access. Now, within a landing page, there's pretty much 3 different components that I'll go through. One is page content. That's obviously you click edit, you go through, you add content, images, flow charts, and all that. Then you also have child pages. Now, child pages are pretty much follow a parent-child folder hierarchy, where you have pages. Within that, you have subpages, and then with that, you have more subpages. So those follow a traditional folder hierarchy. And then the third one is probably a little bit lesser used, which is what I'll call related pages. And related pages, if I go backwards, these are all child pages right here, but these ones live elsewhere. They're not child pages of this landing page. They're linked to this page using labels and the content by label macro. So I'm not sure who here has ever used the content by label macro. So not that many. So it's something that I use all the time throughout my Confluence instance. Is I'll have, here's a good example. Do I put my meetings under a meeting page, or do I put the meetings for this particular product under the product page? So you can't put them in both places. But what you can do is put them in one place, assign labels to them, and then point to them from another place and reference them using the content by label macro. Also, if you're going to go through and use that technique, make sure you advertise the macros criteria. So you'll see right here in this screenshot, actually, there we go. Right there in that screenshot, I advertise all pages and blog posts in this space with the labels meeting and Reno, which was our product code name, will show up here. So if someone wants to know, hey, how come my meeting minutes are not showing up here? It tells them right here how to ensure that their meeting minutes will show up there. All right. Now, who here emails files, Word documents, or spreadsheets, or PowerPoints, or all that? All right. I hate that. But it's very common. It's something that still happens in 2013. And obviously, with a lot of these files, for this example, we're talking about ID, industrial design. So for a consumer electronics device, you're going to have an industrial design, the buttons, the colors, the look, the size. And so here's a screenshot of all of the different presentations that our ID team presented to us. And here's a screenshot of feedback that we gave in the comments. So if you have individuals who love to email around files, here's a little tip, is what you want to do is create a single page, attach all the files to that, and if they happen to email you a file and tell you, hey, give me your feedback, go to that page, upload the file, post a comment, and then right here you'll see that little link is a hyperlink to this particular comment. So instead of responding back with your comments, you respond back with a link. And then they have to click on that link and go to it, and then after a while they'll get the hang of it, they'll add files to that page, and they'll get the hang of it. This thing is a little jumpy. All right. Another useful macro to use on this page right here, it's using, there's only one line, there's only one macro in this entire page. It's the attachments macro. And so the nice thing about the attachments macro is instead of having to click on tools attachments and then clicking attach, it's right there on the bottom of the page. So you can just very easily click attach a file, and it'll instantly show up right on that page. You're just going to make sure you click the allow upload checkbox so that this option appears. So it only reduces one step, but it's actually for if you're trying to get people to use Confluence and not email, it actually is one nice to have feature that makes it even easier for someone to use Confluence instead of email for posting files and feedback. I swear I cannot, my thumb is not that fast, I can't hit it that fast enough, so it's just a little jumpy. So in my case, I went through and for every single feature on our product, I created a separate page. And I had a version history for the documentation, an overview of the feature, status of the documentation, requirements, feature specifications. And so basically, for every single feature on this device, they follow a very similar format. So if you have the same format, and you want to ensure that other people who are documenting use the same format, make sure you use templates. Who here has used Confluence templates? Once again, just a handful. They're very easy to use, and once you start using them, it'll definitely definitely helps to make sure that you follow the same format for repeated pages that you use. A few macros that I used on this page when documenting each feature is the table of contents. I have very few pages in my entire Confluence instance that doesn't use the table of contents macro. It makes it very easy. Each one of these is a header. So this is a header 1, a header 2, and you can actually define how many levels of headers you want to show in the table of contents. Version history is something I use as well. How many people here, when they save a page in Confluence, actually edit anything into the description down below? So again, just a few people. So if you may wonder, why would I even bother doing that? Well, if you use the version history macro, right here I just have it showing the most recent 10 edits to a page. It will show you right there the comment that you added when you edited the page. So that makes it really easy for someone. They come in, they look at the documentation, and they want to say, has this document been updated in a while? What you kind of need to do is you have to go up to page history, look at the page history, and view it. But if you put the version history right there, it's right in your face, and it tells you all the dates, author, and comments of when this page was updated. So this is really great when you're working in, I try to do agile development or agile documentation when working on consumer electronics devices. Traditionally, they're going to want you to write 100% of all the requirements, all the specifications, have everything done before development teams will want to create a product. I couldn't promise that, so I said, you know what, I'll try to make it easy as possible that when I make changes, subscribe to pages, you'll get pinged that I made a page. I'll use this version history so you can easily see if I've updated the documentation. And so as much as possible, I try to do things that allows me to be able to not be forced into coming up with 100% of my requirements and specifications before having our development team investigate and research and give me a level of estimate on how long they think it's going to take for them to build it. All right, this is where it gets ugly, spreadsheets. So, my development team, one kind of requirement that they gave me is that I had to put my requirements in a spreadsheet. So, at least I used Google Docs for the spreadsheet so that we had a little bit of a collaborative environment. But then I wanted to bring that into Confluence so that we didn't have to bounce back and forth between two different tools. So, no problem. We can do that. We can embed spreadsheets right within Confluence, and then that way, even if you're forced to use a spreadsheet to come up with requirements, you can still add that as an attachment and then use the Excel macro to embed that sheet. Now, in my case, I'm not going to go into the actual spreadsheet, but I had hundreds of lines, hundreds of rows in my requirements. And so to just take that and throw that into a page was very daunting. But what I did have, you'll see right here, is I had each feature. So maybe I had maybe a couple dozen rows for each feature. And you noticed earlier that I had a separate page for each feature. So what I did in my spreadsheet is I created a separate sheet for each feature. And then if you use the Excel macro, you can actually say, don't just embed and show the entire spreadsheet, show just a particular sheet inside it. So in this case, you can link to a spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be in the page. It could be referenced from another page. And then if you want to show just a particular sheet, you can. So this was a way for me to take requirements that were hundreds of rows and then split them up into separate pages. So if I go back a few pages here, right here, this was, I was showing an example of what I call the activity history feature. The overview status requirements, this requirements right here was actually just a single, anyone who was viewing the page had no idea that it was being driven from a spreadsheet, but it was actually just showing these rows in the spreadsheet. So right within the page it says requirements, and it shows these, and it renders these, and someone looking at it doesn't even realize that it's being rendered from the spreadsheet, but behind the scenes it really is. So that was a way to take these spreadsheets that I was required to use to create requirements, and then to still find a way to embed that into Confluence in a seamless, organized manner. Now, before being a product manager, I was actually a developer. So things like variables and references and modularity and encapsulation and all these things, I kind of took that into my documentation. So you'll notice right here, I'm kind of going through and describing some elements on a page or a screen within my hardware device, and I say, hey, this is this value right here points to what I call the activity recording feature, the activity sport type variable. And so rather than just saying, yeah, just display whether this is biking or running, I actually point and reference. And you'll notice that little pound right there. That little pound is an anchor within the activity recording page. And you'll see all throughout here I reference other places within the documentation. Nice thing is when you actually export a page in Confluence as PDF, it actually maintains all those links. So even if you export it to an external file, it makes it really nice because you can link within different places, even within a PDF file. So let's see, the next tip was link to pages and anchors. So when I reference UI components, variables, and other well-defined entities, if you just use text and say, show the date. Okay, well, what do you mean? In what format? Does it adhere to a particular format, do you just show the year and the month? Is it 24-hour, 12-hour, all those sorts of things. If you just specify to the developers, show the date, they can make mistakes. So if you actually reference entities, I'll call them, within your documentation, it forces you to specify something in one place and then link to it, and I guess you could say it kind of keeps you honest. And if you actually document in that way, I promise that the developers will have a little bit more respect for you as well. So 2 different ways to actually create anchors. One is headers naturally create anchors, and then there's also an anchor macro. And if you want to link to anchors, you simply, in the link, if you're using the link macro, you have the page name, pound, and then the anchor name. So if you're talking about a header, it's actually just whatever text you have in the header, and you can actually leave in the spaces. So you don't have to remove the spaces from the anchor name. So if you're using, I actually, as much as possible, try to avoid using the anchor macro, and I use headers as much as possible. The only time I found myself manually creating anchors is if I was referencing items that were within a row in a table. If you actually use the headers within a row in a table, it kind of got the formatting all screwy. So that was pretty much the only time I actually used the anchor macro. Every other time I relied on headers. All right, going with the flow. So flow charts, obviously, picture says 1,000 words. So anytime I did have specifications that were in text, I did as much as I could to kind of do little screen flows to kind of show the flow, whether it be what happens when you're on a screen and you click a button, or you enter another screen, or so basically flows within your software. It's very nice to actually create visual representations. Wireframes is something else that I found to be very handy. And this is something that I kind of learned, is that if you're going to go through and create wireframes, it comes in very handy to create a wireframe for what I call the specification, and then another one for the example. This way you can kind of, it's really hard if you just have examples to know, what's dynamic, what's static, what's the same every single time. But if you actually go through and do something like this Now here's another example here. This is static, it's always this icon, it's always this icon, but this is dynamic, and this is dynamic, and this is dynamic, but these are static. So that when you can come over here and you say, here's an example, this is, kind of an activity type with an icon and, the date, the time, and so these are the same. So if you actually go through when you document, you have both a spec as well as an example. It makes it a little easier for the developers to understand what you are trying to describe and define. And that's all I'm going to go into for now. I think for this particular project, I created over 500 pages of documentation. So I just went through and showed you a little bit of snippets. But the main point that I'm trying to convey is that all of these techniques I've used are very, very simple techniques. Other than the last two that I showed you, they're all free plugins. And they're something that even a beginner can go use and then put together to make really powerful, well-structured, and elegant documentation. And that's it. So. Questions?
When you had the spreadsheet link, did you have to upload it every time you changed it?
Yes, I did. I actually have a request, I think a Giro request for Confluence. It's about probably 3 or 4 years old. That is for being able to embed a spreadsheet and being able to edit it inline or, without having to re-upload a file. So that's something that...
Marketplace.
What?
Marketplace. I think there's something on Marketplace.
There is, okay, maybe there is now. So, yeah.
There is, but you can only use it in Safari. You can't use it on Mac, you can only use it in some browsers.
Right. Yeah, so what I end up using is using Google Docs and exporting it each time. Which actually, I'll go back real quick. I'll show the page where I exported it to. So right here, there's this revision history. So every single, basically, I have this page called Fitness Device Software Product Requirements document. And here's the link to the Google Doc. Here's the link to the latest that's attached to the page. And this is just showing the revision history sheet using the Excel macro to show my changes. But yeah, I did export it out of Google Doc. And one little gotcha with this is now when you export from Google Doc, it automatically creates an XLSX. And the Excel macro, at least in the version of Confluence I have, doesn't work with XLSX files. Yeah, it has to be an XLS, so every time I exported it, I also had to save it as an XLS file. So there's 2 steps before uploading. That's the ugly. Any more questions? All right, that's it.
Thank you. So, I think I presented at one SF user group before, and usually I'm away in Sydney, so I'm glad I'm able to come tonight, and thanks to Kickside for hosting us. I was actually a little freaked out when I got off the lift and saw the security guard and didn't know if I was in the right place, but I guess I am. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Hodges. I'm Dan Chupakos' counterpart for the Confluence marketing team. I lead up Confluence marketing here at SF. Actually, years ago, I used to work with Mr. Muldoon in Sydney when we were part of the pre-sales team, so I know Nick very well. You can find me on Twitter at Matt and Hodges, or if you ever tweet at Confluence, you usually get me responding to you. So Confluence 5 is what I'm going to talk about today, which we shipped last Tuesday. And can I get a show of hands of how many people in the room actually use Confluence? A little bit over half, okay. Now I'm going to ask about what versions you're running, so keep your hand raised. If you're using Confluence 3 or above, it should be everyone who uses Confluence, okay? Keep them raised if you're using Confluence 4 and above. What about Confluence 5? Who's on Confluence 5? Okay, a couple of people, mostly Atlassians. And who misses Wiki Markup? Awesome, should be pretty easy. So Confluence 5 introduced a brand new design, what we like to call a new look, feel, and flow. I'm going to walk through the main changes in Confluence 5, and I'll try and relate them back to what's actually changed in previous versions. And everything that I talk about, it's available online, and there's a change management guide if you are looking to upgrade to make the transition easier for your users, because there are quite a few major UI changes in the release. So first of all, a new design. What I'm about to show you is the incarnation of a couple of years of work from our design team at Atlassian, and it's what we call internally the Atlassian Design Guidelines, or the ADG. This is a design that you'll see rolled out across all of our products over the coming months. We started with Bitbucket. Stash, which is a new product, DVCS solution we shipped, has the design guidelines applied. Confluence 5 was the next product, and Giro 6 will be next, I think in May or June, hopefully, for Dan this year. So with the new design, our goal was to redesign every single screen from the ground up. Now you might not notice a lot of difference in the placement of things on the screens, but ultimately the product is a lot cleaner, it's a lot simpler, and we've removed a lot of complexity in certain areas of the product. So we redesigned the dashboard, we redesigned the people directory and the space directory, the space homepage, and I'll cover the space sidebar, which you can see there on the right-hand side. And we also gave the editor a reskin as well to bring it up to speed with the design guidelines. A little feature that we also added in, which is one of my favorites, a new feature in Confluence actually that you've had in Giro on demand for a while now, is the ability to upload a global logo that sits in the header. So if you upload a global logo, it replaces the Confluence logo, and Confluence actually automatically detects the primary colors of that logo and applies it across the site for you. We've been using it on demand for a few months with Giro now, and I think about 80% of people who try it out keep the detection of the color scheme, so we like to call it a little bit of magic. But you can see that it's quite easy now to just give your Confluence instance a little bit more of a personal look and feel for your own brand and your own company. On top of the new design, we also simplified the user experience. And we did this in a few ways. The first thing we've done, for those of you that aren't using On Demand, if you are, you've already seen this already, we've introduced a new header. And raise of hands who's using Giro. So if you have a Jira instance that's connected to Confluence via application links, it will automatically show up in the new application switcher in the top right of the dashboard, or left of the dashboard. Administrators can configure any links to any application here, and you can also restrict certain links to certain groups. So if there's an application that a Confluence group shouldn't be able to see, you can restrict that via the Confluence administration console. So you'll find that Confluence, and when we release Jira 6, can really become your hub of places to go when you need to access other enterprise apps and you need to get work done. That's the App Navigator. This is quite a big change. We introduced a global create button, and this replaces the add menu that you see on pages within a space. So this is your single one place to go if you want to create a page or a blog post, replacing the add menu, and it's accessible via a keyboard shortcut as well. And I'll show you how it works in a few moments, but ultimately it's available from every screen in Confluence now. You can create a page or blog post from anywhere. But big one for users is that it does replace the add menu. When we rolled it out internally, a few people didn't see that button. So it's something, if you do upgrade, something to proactively communicate to your users ahead of time. And then we just moved all of your settings and personal stuff. If you're using Confluence 4.3, you have your Workbox for tracking your notifications, and your user profile and help menus all on the right-hand side of the header now, accessible from every screen. So that's the new header. Probably the most visual feature we shipped in Confluence 5 was the space sidebar. And this was all about helping new users or new visitors to a space understand how content is organized in that space and quickly access the most important information in that space. So in this example, we're looking at a development team space. So naturally, the most important pages in that space are usually specifications or a Confluence roadmap. These links are configurable by an admin. I'll show you how that works in a moment. But ultimately, for a user, they can come to a space, quickly find out what that space is being used for, and jump to content really quickly without having to search for it. You can create links to external pages as well, such as a Jira Agile board. So you're not limited to just Confluence content. For admins, another big change, we've got rid of the browse menu completely that used to sit up in the header and confused a lot of people. It's a space level element, not a global element, so we've now moved it into the sidebar, so it's a lot more contextual. And this is where you go to access space permissions, look and feel of the space, content tools such as orphan pages, and the ability to export space. It'll be visible to every user, but obviously admin screens that are only visible to admins will be hidden when a user jumps into the space tools. Notice it's no longer called space admin screen. And then lastly, when you're viewing a page, you have contextual navigation. So we automatically show you the child pages of that page, so you can quickly jump to related pages. If you're viewing a blog, that section will change and will become a chronological list of the recent blog posts that you can navigate through by month. Now, when you want to focus on the content on a page, you can minimize the sidebar and put it into what we call compact mode. If any of you use the documentation theme, you might also be familiar with the keyboard shortcut, which is a left square brace. That will also collapse the sidebar for you. But everything you need is still a click away. Your space shortcuts, your child pages, you can click and they pop out in a nice little fly menu. So you can really focus on your content. I guess I don't have an example of adding space links, adding shortcut links, I must have cut that out. But if you click configure sidebar, which is only visible by space admins, it allows you to change the space logo and also add new links and reorganize them using drag and drop. So I mentioned the global create button. We also thought about the whole content creation experience from the ground up, as creating content, as we know in Confluence, is probably one of the most fundamental things you do with the product. So when you click the create button, you're now presented with a create dialog. And this allows you to do two things. It allows you to set the location of the page or the blog post that you're creating. Confluence will automatically suggest the most recent spaces or the most frequent spaces that you create content in. And you have a nice little picker there to quickly find another space if you want to create something somewhere else. But this is the big one for end users. It surfaces all of those space templates that Anthony mentioned in his presentation to end users, which are previously hidden, kind of hard to find, and I don't know why we implemented it that way, but now with the new create dialog, a new user can come in, click create, and instantly see all the different ways that they can use Confluence, and it just helps onboard your new users a lot faster and get them up to speed and understand the value of using a tool like Confluence. When you do select a template, and you click next, you're taken into the editor. For those of you not using Confluence 4, this is our rich text editor. It's a little bit washed out here on this screen, but we reskinned it. It's a lot cleaner. The editor toolbar functions now have big chunky tooltips, so as a new user you can quickly understand the different functions of the items in the editor toolbar. And we also introduced a responsive design, so if you're not lucky enough to have a big screen, or if you're at an event like this and you're presenting onto a smaller display, if you're in a meeting and you have your meeting notes up, we resized the editor toolbar for you so that you don't get that wrapping effect of all your buttons on multiple lines. And we also did the same thing with the footer as well. So for those of you who are presenting on smaller screens, you'll find that you get maximum editing real estate now with Confluence 5. For those of you using Giro, we added a bit of new functionality to Workbox. So for those of you who are not familiar with Workbox, Workbox is your in-app notifications and tasks engine inside of Confluence. And what it allows you to do is track all of your important notifications, whether it be someone sharing a page with you, mentioning you in a page or a comment, commenting on something that you have created or have contributed to. You now get a notification in your Confluence Workbox. For those of you using Jira, if you've connected it via your application links, you now get your important Jira notifications in your Workbox as well. So for someone like me, who spends 99% of my time in Confluence, and I work closely with other teams who use Jira most of the day, I can continue to interface and work with those teams without having to switch contexts and go to Jira and then back to Confluence again. I can do it all from my Workbox. We introduced Realtime Alerts on pages. So if you have the problem I do and you have about 50 browser tabs open every day, and about 10 to 20 of those might be a Confluence page, we now give you a little alert in the browser tab to notify you if there's been a change made to that page, whether it be an edit or a comment since the last time you viewed it. And if you are on a page, we use blogs a lot at Atlassian, and comments get added very quickly, and often when you're reading a blog, 5 or 6 comments will be added by the time you finish writing your comment. So we give you a little notification when a new comment has been added, so you can click it, no page refresh, that comment loads instantly on the page for you. So you can keep up to date with the discussion and don't look like a fool when you post the same question that someone posted 2 minutes before you. It happens. Recently viewed, this is a feature that's existed in Confluence for a while now. We just made it a heck of a lot more intuitive and more usable. It's hidden away in your user profile menu. Previously, when you opened it up, it would load another window. Now you get a nice dialog that looks and feels like Confluence. And really cool, you can type and filter for your recently viewed pages or blogs. So quite often, I don't remember the exact title of the page, but I remember a little bit of it. Now I can open up this dialog. I use the keyboard shortcut G, then R, which opens it up, and I can just start typing and find that page I know I was looking at yesterday. As with every release, we always try and satisfy our customers, and Anthony mentioned he has a feature request on Giro that's 3 to 4 years old. We do tackle those feature requests, and there's quite a lot of them that we did tackle with Confluence 5. I'll go through a few of them very quickly. If you haven't used Confluence 4 yet and you're worried about upgrading because you've heard it's unreliable, this is our fastest, most reliable editor yet. We introduced instant edit. When you click an edit on a page, the editor now loads instantly. And also if you paste in a YouTube link, you'll get a preview of the video as well. You get the first thumbnail of the video. So if you're like me and you embed a lot of YouTube videos on a page, you can easily see the differences between those videos rather than just seeing the widget connector macro with a random URL. You can nest expand macros. If you use expand macros in your documentation, you can put an expand inside an expand inside an expand to your heart's content. You can use excerpt includes across spaces. This is quite an advanced feature. Technical documentation people use it a lot. It basically allows you to avoid duplicating content. So if you have an instruction that you want to document once but use on many different pages, you can write it on a page that might have other content on it and mark it as an excerpt of that page, and then include it on any page across any space. So that if you ever need to update that instruction, you just go to one place to update it and everywhere else is updated. Previously, you were limited to only using excerpts from the same space. So we solved that issue and satisfied 111 votes. For admins out there, a lot of improvements to content and user management. In 4.3.2, we allowed you to remove versions of attachments. In Confluence 5, you can now remove versions of a page. You might wonder why you want to do that. Sometimes you put sensitive information on a page. It might be a password. Your lawyer comes to you and says you need to delete this page. You can now remove that one version that has that sort of sensitive piece of information on it. So quite useful for Sarbanes-Oxley compliance. Recently, when we had to change the name of Ship It, I'm not allowed to say what it used to be called, that feature came in very handy. Export blog post to PDF, I won't go into too much detail, and then just a bunch of improvements to user management, improvements to the UI, made it a lot easier for admins to create and manage groups, and just made that experience a lot nicer. So that's Confluence 5. It's available today. If you're using on demand, you've already been upgraded. I think we just released 5.0.1 with a critical bug fix, so download that one. There's one more thing though, and based on Anthony's presentation, I know he's going to be super excited about this. I can't tell you exactly what it is now, but if you go to this link, oh damn, not that good. What's the password? Is it just Kickside? Kickside? Oh, capital. Okay. Yeah. Yes. XFI, yes. Sorry guys, that just killed my whole demo. XFI, yes, I got it.
And then yes, okay.
Okay. So Confluence 5 laid the foundation for us to do even better things in Confluence 5.1, which we aim to ship this quarter. So if you head on onto this page and put in your email address, we'll notify you as soon as it's ready. And that's it. Look forward to this release. It's bigger than Confluence 5, I promise. Does anyone have any questions for me? What's that?
What is it?
I can't tell you. I'm sorry. I'm just not allowed to. While I'm up here, I might actually address Anthony's question about Google Spreadsheets or spreadsheets in Confluence. One thing you will get in Confluence 5.1, which I can tell you, which I think they're confirming today, that will make the release, is we're going to replace the Flash viewer for embedding files on a page with the HTML5 viewer, which adds a whole bunch of new functionality and makes the experience a lot better for embedding Office documents, PDFs, PowerPoint presentations on pages. For your Google Spreadsheets, I don't know whether you tried using the iframe macro, which I think is from Adaptivist or Customware, I forget which one. Basically, you can go in and you can do, in Wiki Markup, curly brace, iframe, colon, src or source equals. You put in a URL, you can specify a width and a height for that iframe, and as long as you're authenticated via Google Docs, the spreadsheet will show inside the page. You mentioned that you couldn't The view file macro didn't work with XLSX files, which is Microsoft
Not
Office
view file, the Excel, they're two different ones.
Oh, Bob Swift's plugin?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Did you try using the view file macro?
Yeah, it made the formatting all screwy, so
Okay.
yeah.
I'll follow up and see whether he's added support for XLSX. I know I think Bob quit his job and is now working full time on Atlassian add-on, so he's probably updated that. Any other questions? Cool. Thanks, guys.